on the positive, fantastic rollout so far of our vaccinations, but two very critical questions have emerged overnight. One, the suggestion that the European Union may be pressurising Pfizer to reduce supply or prevent supply of enough of the stock of the vaccine from Brussels coming into the UK, because coincidentally, most European countries are way behind us on the rollout. First of all, just address that, and I'll come to the second one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm confident that our deliveries from Pfizer will continue. Albert Bourla, the head of that company, has done a tremendous job throughout this sort of COVID pandemic vaccine journey. He's been absolutely focused on equitable supply. They're reconfiguring their European operation to go to 2 billion doses from 1.2 billion doses. So I'm confident they'll be able to supply the EU and the United Kingdom, and I pay tribute to Albert Bourla and his team.
Are the EU, though, as an entity, are they trying to
block support?
Is there an issue here where we're doing so well by comparison to Germany, France, Spain, Italy, all parts, of course, of the EU, that they are, they're getting rattled and they're getting pressure from their own people? Why are you not moving so fast? And they are trying, as a political union, to put pressure on Pfizer to send more their way. Is that happening?
Well, I don't want to obviously speculate on the local politics of the vaccine deployment. All I would say is, and Jens Spahn, the German health minister, and others would share this view, is that no one is safe until we are all safe, until we are all vaccinated across the United Kingdom. That's my priority, and of course the EU and the rest of the world, which is why we're putting 1.3 billion into the effort to help the low-income and medium-income countries.
Okay, well, you mentioned Germany, and you mentioned safety of the vaccines, and that brings me to the second question, which is this very shocking report that came out of nowhere yesterday that apparently a reputable German newspaper sourced to government officials, members of the German government, saying that the efficacy of the AstraZeneca vaccine, the one created here in Oxford, for over 65s only has 8% efficacy. Now, that's been strongly denied by AstraZeneca, but what is your understanding? Where has this report come from? Why are the German government of this belief? And can you reassure all the over 65s in this country that that is not the case?
Yes, I absolutely can reassure the over 65s in this country that that is not the case. The Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation, the experts, the regulator have looked at the all the data that AstraZeneca Oxford have provided. I spoke actually to the chief executive of AstraZeneca last night, Pascal Soriot. We don't know where this unsubstantiated report comes from. It's not true. This 8% figure is completely nonsense. So I would absolutely rely on the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation of the United Kingdom, and of course the regulator, one of the best regulators in the world, the MHRA, in terms of efficacy.
What is the efficacy rate for those in that risk group over 65 of the AstraZeneca vaccine?
So it produces both very similar to the under 65, but also high levels of T cells as well, which means the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine not only offers high levels of protection, sort of 3 weeks after the first dose and beyond that, but also very high levels, almost 100% protection from severe infection from the disease, from the virus. So it's an excellent vaccine, clearly one that the EU also wants to get sufficient supplies for, hence some of these headlines. And I know that AstraZeneca, under the leadership of Pascal Soriot, is making it available to the whole world at cost, at not for profit, until this pandemic is over.
Tell us also, Nadhim Zahawi, because obviously there are issues there, and they may go back to the EU's problems with distributing the vaccine amongst their populations, which are causing domestic issues for them. But we have an issue here still, don't we? And I remember when we last talked to you about the gap, the 12-week gap that you introduced for the Pfizer vaccine doses. Now, the British Medical Association has asked you to cut that to 6 weeks. Can you once again explain what data you are going on that convinces people that that 12-week gap will prove efficient for the Pfizer vaccine?
Absolutely. So the 12-week, up to 12-week gap is for both Pfizer and AstraZeneca after both the the Chief Medical Officers of England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland looked at the detail.
That's right. But the AstraZeneca vaccine, we know there is data where we know that that 12-week gap actually, we know that works. We're just not sure about the Pfizer vaccine, stretching that to 12 weeks. And the British Medical Association particularly concerned.
Yes, and the Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, and his deputy, Jonathan Van Tam, have written to them very clearly, addressing their concerns. So to your question, Susanna, so if you look at the data from Pfizer BioNTech, and you take it from the first moment you get the jab all the way out to 21 days, then yes, efficacy is at about 50%. But of course, your body begins to build up the antibodies. So if you go from day 14 or 15 to day 21, you're at 89% protection after that first dose. And as Chris Whitty has said, it's much better to offer my mother and my father, if I only had 2 doses, that one protection at 89% than to give my mother both doses and keep my father unprotected.
But are your mother and your father both then protected to the right level at 12 weeks? And what data can you show your mum and dad that that is the case?
So what Jonathan Van Tam quite rightly has written about is that he and the JCVI have seen data that is not in the public domain from Pfizer BioNTech that they're not publishing, that make them feel very confident that the 12-week, up to 12-week gap in dosage actually does work and does deliver that boost that continues to give you that additional protection when you get your second jab.
Well, it might be useful to share that data publicly, because there are all sorts of concerns about the fact that there isn't the data there. If you're saying there is data that is not in the public domain, I would strongly advise let's get it out there in the public domain, because that would boost people's confidence.
Can I just play? I want to play a clip from New Zealand from a rock concert yesterday. Oh, we haven't got it? Sorry. The reason I want to play it, you know that New Zealand is almost zero COVID-free. And it was just on Twitter last night, I saw it. It was a rock concert full of thousands of people who were no masks, no socially distancing, having a completely normal life, drinking beer, watching a rock concert. Let's have a look.
We need your help right
now. That imagery is pretty heartbreaking for most people in this country to look at that and wonder, well, why are we not in that position? And one of the main factors in New Zealand's success in controlling the virus is the way they control their border. Very draconian and early on, and has been that way ever since. Do you think, I mean, we heard that Priti Patel wanted to do this in our country as Home Secretary back in March when this debate was raging. And instead, we as a country sent people to the Cheltenham Festival, Liverpool football matches. We had concerts when everyone else was locking down. And we didn't lock down the border, and we never have locked down the border. With hindsight, would it have been better for this country to have followed New Zealand's path, which they got from Asian countries who advised them, and we just shut our border down and said, here's the deal, British people. If we do this, you will have a normal life with a normal economy within the confines of our border. That's the deal. Would that have been a better place for us to take ourselves than where we find ourselves now?
Well, look, I mean, we will, and we are good at this, we will have an inquiry and look at exactly all the decisions. I'm not an epidemiologist or virologist, I'm a chemical engineer by background, but you're right to say we've got to look at all those decisions. We review our border policy. Last time I was on your, not last time, I think the time before I was on your program, you talked about pre-departure testing that was being applied in countries like the UAE and others. And of course, we introduced pre-departure testing, as has Germany, by the way, and Canada only in January, a few weeks ago. So countries are constantly reviewing, as we do, our border policy. We're looking at hotel quarantines, as the Prime Minister has announced. There will be a detailed announcement from the Cabinet on this, as well as, of course, the passenger locator forms and all the other border controls that we put in place when we discovered the South African variant and the Brazilian variant. We acted immediately.
The problem is, you look at our death rate and you look at our death toll. Over 100,000 people have died now, by far the worst of almost any comparative country in the world. You look at this and you think, this is milk spilt, isn't it? Why didn't we do this months and months ago?
It is, and it's painful, and it's closer to home than you think, Piers, in terms of losing relatives and family.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
I lost my uncle last week to COVID, so but you're right, it is grim and horrible. But our way out of this is the vaccination program, and it makes me angry, but it makes me determined to make sure we vaccinate the most vulnerable people in our country, protect them as quickly as possible, and then protect the whole nation. That is our way out of this. That is ultimately what we will do, and I promise you, I will make sure that happens.
Well, we're so sorry to hear that about your uncle. Can I just ask, did he have a vaccine, and was he entitled to one?
No, he was entitled to one. Sadly, he didn't. He got COVID before he got the vaccine, but obviously you have to wait 28 days till someone recovers before you can vaccinate them, and he didn't make it.
I mean, that, for you as the vaccine minister, to have an uncle who simply didn't get the vaccine in time to protect him, that is heartbreaking. And that shows, I think, everybody just how important it is, if you get that call to have that jab, get down there faster than a greyhound.
Absolutely.
I'm really sorry to hear that, and thank you for sharing that
family.
information with us. I think it is powerful to remind people of the terrible cost of this virus and what it's having on everybody. Nadhim Zahawi, thank you very much indeed for joining us.